You're live.
Okay. A quorum being present, welcome to the Annapolis Historic Preservation Commission meeting for 13 September 2022. The meeting shall come to order. The commission operates pursuant to the land use article of the annotated code of the state of Maryland. The local authority is provided is derived from the municipal code of the city of Annapolis, code chapter 21, section 56. Our purpose is to preserve sites, structures, districts that have historic, cultural, archaeological, and architectural significance. Requirements for serving on the commission are detailed in section 21, chapter 21, section 806. The HPC operates pursuant to the State of Maryland Open Meetings Act, and therefore no pending application shall be discussed among commissioners outside of any public hearing in the determination of any application. Okay, that's call to order. Next on the agenda is roll call. Bill Williams.
Here.
Kim Finch.
Here.
Bobby Collins, who is
Here.
Vice Chair. Will Scott.
Here.
Kevin Smith.
Here.
And I am Tim Leahy. I serve as chair. We have with us John Tower, who is our staff. Are very capable staff. I don't see yet any of our legal counsel who may or may not show up, but that's fine. Kimberly Consoli is our recorder and who will be taking notes. So with that, any announcement? Next item on the agenda is announcements. John, or any commissioner?
Well, I'll jump into it. Small announcement. There were archaeological artifacts found in the digging of a footing at the Hillman garage. Now, unfortunately, the area was contaminated with diesel fuel and a few other little heavy metal things that you wouldn't want to come in contact with. So I'm not sure that we're going to be able to save those. But let me just say, I will share pictures. And frankly, I've never seen such a vast array of 19th century artifacts. Everything from cherry pits to squash seeds, crab shells, bottle shards, leather straps, shoes, a chair, pit sawn lumber, whole bottles, which is always unusual because people tended not to throw away things that were complete. They reuse them. So yeah, it's really quite an astonishing array. And there were so many of them that the archaeologist literally said, stop, we have too many artifacts. It was really something. The fact that they were contaminated is a sort of mitigating factor because we may not be able to do too much more than just photograph them and then send them to an appropriate landfill. But it was certainly very exciting for about 24 hours.
Well, it raises the question in my mind, at least, is what is our process when we find something? You document them and you photograph them, right? Say you found, I don't know, a gold coin.
That was, well, documentation on that could be sketchy. That's
I'm just curious about what are actually, I just,
so the city's archaeologist,
and who is for the other commissioners, you should name
Gene Ward from
exactly.
Applied Archaeology and History.
Exactly.
Is present, and she takes possession of the artifacts and then processes them. And that's how they are recorded. And that is everything from these sort of household items to human remains.
Human remains are the issue that I was thinking about.
Oh, well, we get those too.
At State Circle, we have them.
Yes.
Or Church Circle.
Yes, and counting them.
So the process, I just wanted to inform the other commissioners that there is a procedure, a protocol for dealing with artifacts.
Yeah, and Applied Archaeology and History Associates is the city's consultant for archaeology, and they're really fantastic.
Cool.
And this was, we had very, very short notice about these artifacts being uncovered. It was sort of, what are you doing right now? Okay, run. And so I did, and it was truly rewarding. Although whatever it was that was on them, really was difficult to get off my hands. So just letting you all know, you will see pictures. I will share pictures. And then my other small announcement is, this is ancillary to other things that we're looking at. I visited Newport and looked at the raised foundations, and they're very well done. And I'm hoping that we can use those as an example to guide us in the areas of the city that are subsiding and experiencing rising sea level and flooding. So I'll share those also. Yeah.
Can you send them around to all of us? Yeah.
Let's see. Now, last thing, because I know we've got a busy night.
Sorry.
But there is talk about observing the visit of Lafayette, and that is now coming up on 200 years that he visited Annapolis. He visited Annapolis first as a military leader during the Revolution, and spent time with Charles Carroll and camped in Eastport. But then he came back in 1824 here, I believe. And it's a fascinating story, Lafayette's tour. And the Heritage Commission is talking about doing something for that, which I think is wonderful. He's a real hero, abolitionist, suffered for his egalitarian beliefs of equal justice and freedom for all men. I'm not sure exactly where he was, and then came back and did a tour here. It's great stuff. Great stuff if you don't know the story. So anyway, that's it from me.
All right. Well, I think that raises an interesting concept that we and the Heritage Commission should constantly be in touch with each other. We know everyone. I think everyone here knows everyone on the Heritage Commission, and so I'd be happy if we were communicating with them on an ongoing basis. Okay. Any other announcements? Okay. Next on the agenda is approval of draft minutes. We have July 12th. Any changes, comments on the minutes from July 12th? I think all of us were here.
Yep.
No. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes for July 12th?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Then July 28th. Again, I think all of us were here for that. Any changes, comments?
No.
Okay, could I have a motion?
I move we approve the minutes for July 28th, 2022.
Second.
All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Next on the agenda, any violations or active violations? New violations or active? Can't remember any active violations, John, or they're new ones?
Well, I had an interesting application for the replacement of a grease trap for armadillos, and armadillos has a violation for vinyl windows, for which they are planning to go to court, and but they had an application for a grease trap replacement, and typically, if there is a violation, no COAs are issued. But in this case, I thought for the sake of the already extremely taxed sewer system, that it was best to have their grease trap replaced as quickly as possible. Who knows how well it's functioning. And then,
John, can I interrupt for a quick
Yes, go
second?
ahead.
I wasn't aware of the vinyl window problem in armadillos. Was that something ongoing? Or I don't think any of us.
Oh, yes. Long term, not a recent replacement.
Okay. So that's the violation we can. So 2 violations or potential violations there. Okay.
Yes, and as I said, and I have spoken with Mike Malinoff about this. We typically do not issue certificates of approval for buildings with violations, but I thought for a health issue, it's different, and I thought that was important. Let me see, and then the next one is 8 Pinckney Street.
John, can I ask you about that policy?
Go ahead.
To me, I don't understand that policy when someone is looking for a certificate of approval for independent work from something that might be a violation. Then why would we not give them the certificate of approval if they're trying to do it the right way on the other aspect?
You mean
I don't think,
something other than what they have the violation on?
right. If they're trying to do the right thing, then we shouldn't be impeding that.
Well, I'm an open book on all of this. I'm happy to go out and meet with people and talk with them and see how we can take care of the issue. But when there is a violation and it's pretty a flagrant one, then it's important to make sure that it's moving forward in some constructive way. So if that applicant or property owner is willing to create an application for something that they would like to do now that the eyes of preservation are on the property, well, that's great. But they still need to address the violation also. It can't just go on the back burner and then other things be approved. It's how should I put it? This is one of the few cases where this has happened, and you can see how we've proceeded.
I'm actually a little confused. And Kevin, you raise a point here. If a property owner is not in compliance with, for instance, life safety or other code violations, you shouldn't be moving, even though it's a different section of the code, if they're not in compliance with, in general, with, if it's a residential property with tenants or with life safety or other, we shouldn't be ignoring the fact that they're not in compliance. It's like, in my mind, you can't get your driver's license if you've got like 7,000 parking tickets. So that's kind of what I thought where we were. So Kevin,
Tim?
what were you asking
Tim?
about, Kevin?
Tim, for institutional memories purpose, this has been the city's policy for at least 35 years, endorsed by the Office of Law. And it's the equivalent in planning and zoning and our issues with putting a lien on somebody's house. It is a tool to be used to encourage them to bring themselves entirely into compliance. And your analogy is a perfect one that most people are familiar with. You can't renew your tags if you have, you don't have insurance. You can't renew your driver's license if you outstanding tickets. It's the same principle.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I was just curious. Kevin raised the issue, so I'm curious.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Will. If that's the Office of Law has endorsed that policy, that's fine. I just in principle don't agree that if someone's coming proactively to get a certificate of approval on something independent from the violation, that we should be approving that and having that property owner be able to be in compliance with the other thing they're trying to be in compliance with. So, but if the Office of Law has given an opinion, that's fine.
I guess if I'm hearing you, Kevin, you're saying that we don't want to. If someone's trying to do the right thing.
Yes.
This is only an encouragement for them to do the right thing on all points.
On the other, you're right. So, and by the way,
It's a stick and a carrot situation. In that, if someone wants to do something for their benefit, you say, in order for you to do that for your benefit, you have to already fix this thing that you've done wrong.
Yeah.
Now, on John's side, the only people who are going to suffer if this grease trap is not, or interceptor is not corrected, is the city. It's going to ruin the city pipes. So that needs to go.
Yeah,
So,
John did the right thing. I'm endorsing what John did.
okay.
It's again, I think it's important that as Kevin said, when people are trying to do the right thing, let's tell them yes, but right.
And that is how I handle it.
Of course,
for administrative approvals, absolutely.
John, you're doing a perfect job. We all know.
Oh, thank you. Wow.
John's always been perfect.
And by the way, I'd like to acknowledge, for the record, a few minutes ago, Lisa Bell has joined us, who represents us from a legal counsel, and hi, Leslie has joined us as well a few minutes ago. So, any other discussion of violations or? Okay. All right.
Quick question.
Of course.
Question, 110 Compromise has umbrellas on their rooftop deck that do not meet our standards. Because they're on a rooftop thing, they're not technically street furniture. Do they still have to follow the rules, John?
They do. And actually, I wasn't going to go through the whole list because we'd be here all night. Especially with regard to restaurants. Restaurants are, it's like wrangling. Well, I want to say something that's sensitive.
Whack-a-mole?
It's worse. It's way worse than that. All the rules are up.
Cats don't have any kind of political issues around.
Right. Exactly. So let me just say that I am working with 110 Compromise. I have met with their architect. They're represented by their architect, Leo Wilson, and talked about all of the different items there, including screening of their HVAC on the roof.
Right.
So, but here's an irony. I'll just bring it up because 110 Compromise was quick to point it out. So they may have striped umbrellas. They actually look pretty good. However, if you just go down Compromise Street a bit, you've got beer advertisements on the two major outdoor dining areas. So the enforcement of all of these things is extremely time consuming, and basically I just focus on particular things and move forward with them. It's a good reason to have an assistant for me.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. And I agree it's time consuming, and I appreciate all the work you're doing. That's every time I come down Main Street, those umbrellas are one of the first things I see. So
Yeah.
it just constantly reminds me. And I know you've had all the other conversations you've been having with them. And I appreciate all the work you're going through to get them in compliance.
The point is that we have the guidelines, and they should be observed. But I was in the office over the weekend, and I left on Saturday night fairly late, and I would say one out of every 5 umbrellas on West Street for the outdoor dining was not in compliance also. And those, so it's amazing to me. But you tend not to see those. They only come out occasionally. And it's the first time I've seen them. I caught them for the first time, took a bunch of pictures, and I thought, oh, great, violations for, 4 different restaurants. What fun. Anyway.
Well, hopefully winter's coming and we'll see. So.
Right. Yes, we could go on. The flowers, the flower boxes in front of Buddy's are not in compliance either.
So, well, let me give one positive outcome. So there's, I think I started on it, 8 Pinckney Street.
Yes.
So 8 Pinckney Street, which was a topic of conversation for demolition by neglect for the exterior, has submitted an application. It's not complete, but it's a start. It's
Okay.
more than we've gotten in the past. And the first item that they're going to address is the front porch.
Right.
Wow.
So
Good.
I'll take it.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and umbrellas not on the street, but on a roof, or another conversation we might want to actually. We're learning about our guidelines and how to possibly rephrase something.
And
Okay.
John, next time a person in violation points out someone else, thank them for pointing them out and tell them that you'll be sure to tell them they were referred by them.
Anything spoken in about violations, I keep confidential. Anything written, of course, is public record.
Right.
Oh.
Well,
So write it down first.
I'd actually like to give us all a little pat on the back, and I think as well as the merchants on Main Street, it looks really much better than it used to, and to John's credit, working with them, and they want us to look like a quality environment, and that's all we're looking for. We're just looking for a quality brand. When people come here, it doesn't look like junky.
Right.
It looks authentic in some way.
Budweiser is a quality brand.
All right. Yes, Will, you're right. Quality is in the eye of the beholder. Well, that being said, moving on, we have 2 items that are eligible for their consent docket tonight. The consent docket is our procedure that's designed to expedite applications. If you, to be considered for the consent docket, you must have received recommendations for approval or approval with minor conditions for all of the city, from the city staff and technical advisors. There needs to be no opposition from the public. If an application is approved on the consent docket, you do not need to further testify. you need to understand that you need to get the additional permits from the city. The following applications are eligible for the consent docket. 80 Conduit Street and 110 Dock Street. And I don't have right in front of me the staff reports to see if there were conditions on those.
Neither of those have conditions.
Okay, yes. So for those two applicants, it's important that thank you for coming through the process. We always need to see if there's any public interest or comment. So that's why we go through this process. And there are no conditions on these two applications. So I will take a motion from the commissioners to approve 80 Conduit Street and 110 Dock Street on the consent docket.
So moved.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And again, thanks for coming and going through the process, but appreciate and go forth and improve your properties. Okay. So we have one item in new business, 171 Conduit Street. So Josie, can you promote those people to us and we will have a conversation.
Let me know if I'm missing anyone. I know some other people are here. Daniel, am I missing anyone? I've got Robert, Daniel, and Lisa.
Right.
Lisa
Is that
King,
everybody?
Lynn Mitchell.
Lynn Mitchell as well. Okay. Is that everyone?
Yes, Robert, Lisa, Robert Enton, Lisa King, Lynn Mitchell. I'm just not seeing Lynn Mitchell's screen up.
Be rejoining.
There she is.
There she is. Okay. So there we go. Everyone here. From a procedure point of view, you made an application. We have a staff report in front of us as well. Would you? So who is presenting? From the property owner first, right? So Dan.
Correct. Yes, I'll be presenting on behalf of the property owner.
Hi, Dan. And then if you present your application, and then we have some public testimony as well. So Dan, why don't you go ahead and present your application, and then we'll take public testimony, and then we'll have our, actually, what we'll do, Dan, present staff report, and then public testimony.
Thank you. Before the hearing started, I went through share screen with Josie, and now it's not there again. Josie, may I please share screen if that is okay with the chairman?
Of course.
Can you see my cover letter exhibit, 49 pages? Can you see that on the screen? Does not seem
there
to...
it is.
Okay. All right. And can you, all right, but so this,
can I comment? This was put in our drive this afternoon. So
okay.
I do not believe that the commissioners have had an opportunity to review what you're presenting right now. Can you present your application first?
Yes, where is
Because we have had an opportunity to see that.
the
Yeah.
application was revised today with a slight change to the location of the gate at the recommendation of the fire department and Mr. Tower.
That's fine, but we just need to see, commissioners cannot absorb things that are presented at 4:30.
Okay. All right. So this is virtually the same as what came in before. Are you seeing the original revision 1 now share screened by me? Am I doing this correct?
Yes.
Let's
I
see
can
it.
see it.
Okay. See, I can't tell what's screen sharing unless I ask. Is it the original revision 1?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. I mean, I can see that, but I don't know that you're seeing it. Okay, so the revision 1, this property is 171 Conduit Street, the Maryland Retailers Association, a storefront building, as you know, that Mr. Tower gave in his report that's been there a very long time. And adjacent to the building is an alley that is more than 8 feet 4 inches wide. But the 8 feet 4 inches that we're concerned with belongs to the Maryland Retailers Association. And the alley runs down between the Retailers Association and on the right there, you see 177 Main Street. That is Osteria or Osteria, depending upon how you.
Yeah, right.
And 179 is now Lulu, the retail store. Okay. And the alley comes up to a parking lot, a private parking lot. And I'm going to skip forward. Okay, so this is our application. The application is to install a parking gate arm across the alley at the rear corner of the Maryland Retailers building. The mechanical part of it, the box, will be installed behind the building. When I get to a picture, can you see the aerial photo? This is not part of the application, but I'm hoping this will be helpful for the commission.
Yes, I think we understand the location.
Okay. And this is the alley. And this is the rear corner of Maryland Retailers. And the parking gate arm is going to be, the mechanical box is going to be behind the wall. You won't be able to see it from the street. And these are the stairs at the rear of the building. And the parking gate arm will be located here, still behind the building, so as to give clearance for the fire safety code for the rear egress stairs from the second floor. And as you can see, it'll be set at the base there. This parking lot belongs to the Maryland Retailers Association. There will be a Knox box installed on the side of the building where just there you can see there's a telephone box and underneath there's some other switching box. And the Knox box will be here. We met with the fire inspector yesterday and discussed with him how the Knox box works. There are 2 different Knox boxes that are.
So just to interrupt, correct. All the commissioners know what a Knox box is, I hope, or they may not. I mean, it's something I learned. It's the fire.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's always helpful for me to understand where the commission is coming from. The Knox box that's used for these gates is a switch that the fire department has a key. They turn the key and the gate opens. Okay, so they don't have to fumble in the box.
It's like a buzz. It's like a buzzword. I would make sure everyone understands.
There's your traditional Knox box, the new Knox boxes now, and there's even a newer Knox box that responds to the siren of a fire engine, and they blast the siren and the gate opens. So all of that will be coordinated with the fire department. I'm sorry, that is sideways. This is what the gate looks like when it's installed. This just happens to be two gates next to each other, so you probably, this is the installation that will occur there at the base of the steps, and the gate arm will be seen across the alley. The gate does not extend all the way across the alley, so that pedestrians and delivery men, as they do now, will be able to go through the alley unimpeded by the gate arm. The gate arm is there to restrict what we like to refer to as parking poachers, which has become more and more and more of a problem for Maryland retailers and the other owners of the parking lot, who are Maryland bankers. Maryland bankers are here today to answer any questions. Maryland bankers own this building on Duke of Gloucester, and Maryland bankers owns this part of the parking lot, from Maryland bankers all the way over to the rear wall of the building known as Cafe Normandy. And that car right there is in a Maryland banker's spot, because they purchased all of this land from David Jenkins, the owner of that building. The rest of the parking lot belongs to Rickman Development. As you are familiar with it from Main Street, is the Synergy building, or the old Playhouse Theater. And the rest of the parking lot is owned by Rickman, and Rickman gives out the parking spaces to various tenants of the Rickman building. If you visit the site, you will see two parking spaces right here that are owned by 190 Duke of Gloucester Street. That used to be the Jim Wolgemuth Law Office, and he kept those two spaces. They now belong to the owner of this residential dwelling, and they consented to the parking gate. These two spaces you'll see are labeled MBA, Maryland Bankers Association. These were transferred to the Maryland Bankers. This little area here is 181 Main Street, and that's Fox's Den, and they park there by the garage. There it is. There it is. He parks in front of the garage. All of the people with parking spaces will have key fobs. And the building with the rear wall with the mural, that's Cafe Normandy. This parking space, the white Mercedes, that's the Maryland Bankers land that goes right up to the back of the building.
If I could,
do you have any further?
if I could interrupt, that's all excellent information, understanding. But what we are here to approve or deny is actually just the gate. So can you, again, just focus, I think you focused enough and given us information on the gate itself.
Yes.
Yes. So the aspects of the ownership and access are important, but unfortunately, that's not what we are actually evaluating or deciding tonight.
Okay, well, the parking gate is the same, virtually the same configuration as every other parking gate arm in downtown Annapolis.
And it's located on the property owned by the.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, it is. Yes, this is owned by Maryland retailers.
Okay.
Right here, in the site plan.
Yep.
Is Maryland retailers' property.
Yep.
Was
all right.
Surveyed way back in, gosh, I think that's 1899. Belonged to the Kramer family, who ironically also owned the property formerly known as O'Brien's Restaurant. Same family.
Yeah, and I think.
Do you have any other questions about?
Well, Dan, you probably remember when that was built. So actually, Next in our, if you're complete there, John, I'd like next in our procedures to ask our staff, John, will you present your staff report, please?
May I just finish?
Oh, I'm
In
sorry,
10
did I interrupt you?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say that this exhibit is all of the photographs of where the installation is going to be and all the parameters of the parking gate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. John, can you present your staff report?
Sure. So I don't have it as an exhibit, but the staff report is based on, I would say, a year and a half of conversations with the applicants and several visits to the site, and many of them as a result of the building being hit by trucks going in and out and necessitating small but important repairs. And it was difficult for the applicant to find people to do the work, and on more than one occasion. They were small jobs that masons wouldn't necessarily be interested in, and so the idea of a parking arm to limit traffic and impacts with from the parking area, large trucks going back into the parking area, was brought up by the applicant. And I thought it might be a good solution to limiting the amount of exposure that they have for their building, which is about 150 years old and has been in continuous commercial use, I think, since it was built. I've worked with them on location. I have worked with them on insisting that there be an agreement amongst all people who have rights to park, and those who have ownership have signed an agreement to have the parking arm. But from a preservation standpoint, this is pretty simple. They want to put in a parking arm apparatus that will be shielded by a brick building. It will be about 50 feet back from the sidewalk, and
Okay. That's so.
And what you will see of it, the entire feature is a striped arm, and that will extend from the building about 8 feet. There will be enough room to walk around it. So in other words, deliveries that come in by foot will not be impeded, and fobs will be given to those with parking rights. But it was a long time in coming. Would you like me to mention which guidelines I thought were applicable, Tim?
Tim, you're muted.
Yeah, that's what my wife always says. You're muted.
Yes,
I think it's important to focus on the impact on adjacent historic properties.
Right.
And access is, and rights are not our
right. It's not, that is not our purview. And
well, thank you, I think, for John, for you to help and kind of negotiate this among them. But
well, we saw each other fairly frequently, and then emails were exchanged over long periods of time. But the guidelines that this application are compliant with or consistent with is fence design and landscape features. and that is C.6, C10, curb cuts and off-street parking, which essentially says off-street parking is discouraged. However, when appropriate, off-street parking can be approved if it doesn't diminish the historic character of the streetscape. And then also guidelines from the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. And of these, there were quite a few. There's number 1, property shall be used for its historic purpose or be placed in a new use that requires minimal change to defining characteristics of the building and its site and environment. Well, this is a prime example of that. And then number 2, historic character of a property shall be retained and preserved. I think this absolutely addresses that. And then number 9, new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. It's also compliant there. And then number 10, and I think this is also important. New construction shall be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property and its environment would be unimpaired. And this, again, is compliant with that.
Reversible.
So everything here is reversible. The amount of let's say, infiltration to historic material is virtually negligible. It's a piece of equipment that's being installed with a minimal impact on the visual character. And for those reasons, this is approvable, and I recommend approval.
Okay, commissioners, do you have any clarifying questions for the applicant or for staff? Okay, hearing none. Then next in our procedure is public testimony. So I don't know who can go first, but just raise your hand and speak. Okay, Robert Enton. Sorry, Robert.
Thank you very much. My name is Robert Enton. I'm an attorney, and I did submit an email, but late today. I've been general counsel to the Maryland Bankers Association for over 35 years. I'm with a Baltimore law firm called Gordon Feinblatt. I represent a number of different trade associations and businesses before the Maryland General Assembly, and I've been doing that for a very long time as well. So for the last 40 years, I have spent the middle of January to the middle of April in Annapolis. Go down on Monday morning and come home Friday night. I stay at the Calvert House, and I park at the Calvert House.
Yes, I like your background. I like your background there. I just clarifying. I am not sure that your testimony is in our file yet, but if I will follow up with Kimberly, because we have not gone through the process of admitting exhibits yet, but we'll do that if your email is in our folder.
Yeah, thank you. Once again, I apologize for getting it in late. I've not gone through this process before. Parking has been a real problem behind the Maryland Bankers Association, with some days when the staff shows up to park, when people come to visit the office, there are no parking spaces because other people who shouldn't be parking there are parking there. So the gate will be very helpful.
Okay.
It'll control what goes on. I totally endorse everything that Mr. Mellon said, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks. Like I said, we're interested in the physical aspects, the design aspects of the application.
They're fine. They are fine with us.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right. Who would like to speak next? Just raise your hand and wave at me. I see Brian Bolter.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you. Yes, we can hear you.
I guess I'm confused. I mean, it doesn't sound like you're interested in all the negligible or all the impacts that it's going to have. This is more a concern about the design. So all the concerns that I have, which I've outlined, and I have a 3-minute presentation. I can also provide context for the concerns that I have. I just don't understand. Is this a planning and zoning that decides this, or is this simply whether or not the design meets the standards of the Historic Preservation Commission and then it's allowed? I'm confused.
It's the latter. What our commission is asked to do by the public, by code, is to evaluate whether this application is compliant with the standards and does not have an adverse impact on the historic environment. So that's what we do, and we don't. So we can't help. Well, so that's my answer. So it's the latter, Brian.
But if this decision is made, there are all kinds of impacts that are not being considered based on the decision simply because it fits the code. I have all kinds of issues with this. It's not the design of the gate, it's the gate. And it seems like the planning and zoning department approved all 7 restaurants on this block with that alley, knowing that we would use it for the vast majority of keeping the dirty, ugly part of the restaurants in the alley. And this supersedes that decision and puts it all back out on Main Street, which I think is a bigger concern than the design of the arm.
Yeah. I hear you, and we do appreciate that your quality and wanting to maintain the quality of Main Street. But if this decision, if you have it, I guess the only thing I can say, if you don't agree with this, I think you need to address that with the Office of Law to say it's a property ownership issue, which we don't deal with, or property access issue, which really we're not qualified or we can't deal with. So that's all I can say is that we can approve or disapprove this based on our guidelines. If there are other issues in terms of access and property ownership, that's an appeal that you can make to the Office of Law. I think that's my advice. So.
All right. Yeah, it's concerning that this is being framed as a design issue, and it's not a design issue. This is an property access issue that this panel will make a decision that will have adverse effects far more reaching than just the beauty of an arm in an alley.
Okay. Will has a clarifying question. Go ahead, Will. A clarifying question?
No, I don't have a qualifying question. I could offer some perhaps context for Mr. Bolter if you would like me to, but it's at your discretion as the chair.
Yes,
no, Mr. Lay.
Well, maybe we can. We're not to deliberations yet, so perhaps yeah. How about that? Okay.
As I say, at your discretion.
Yeah, let's talk about it in deliberations. So, Brian, did you?
I guess I can go through. I've got about 3 minutes. I was told I was given 3 minutes. I can go through all my points. I'm not
if
sure.
They don't have to do. Feel free to go ahead, but if they don't have to do with the actual design, we understand. We have read. I believe all the commissioners have read your testimony, and it will be in the record. We understand the access issues. I believe we understand the access issues, but that's not within our purview, or so.
But I guess could I ask? Mr. Towers said that he's been working on this for 1.5 years, and it came up because of access issues. So the reason that this whole idea was presented was because of the access that was to this alley and a mirror on a truck hitting a building. So the whole premise of this gate was presented based on access, but now I'm not allowed to talk about the adverse impacts of access.
All right. Actually, I will go ahead.
Just to clarify.
Well, actually, go ahead, Mr. Bolter, if you'd like to go ahead. Go ahead. I understand what you're saying. This is your opportunity to present. So go ahead.
Okay, well, I'll make it brief. I just want to thank you for the opportunity to speak out. We're obviously against this parking arm proposal. I've submitted detailed reasons why, and you have mentioned that you have them and you've read through them, and I appreciate that. From an operational context, this obviously is about trying to hand out a bunch of parking fobs for a gate that will somehow make all our concerns go away, and they don't. Fobs get lost. Drivers for trash companies change daily. There's no proof delivery drivers will be able to maneuver their loads around this apparatus. What about the utility companies? What about emergency grease trap calls, CO2 calls? I know that the fire department has approved it, but we have 7 commercial kitchens alone in this alley, which doesn't help me sleep at night, knowing that there's blocked access to it. The planning and zoning department, in approving these 7 full service restaurants over the past 2 decades, I think part of their wisdom was knowing that the bulk of the dirty, messy parts would be because of unfettered access taken off of Main Street and out of the view of our beautiful historic city. For example, imagine 7 full service restaurants now putting all their trash on Main Street every single day, all because one group wants a parking arm and the trash company won't accept using a fob. We think the department had wisdom in making that decision. This is obviously about parking, about protecting their parking spaces. The owners of these parking spaces already have poles installed that when they raise them and lock them, keep unauthorized cars from using them. They work, the owners know they work. It's a solution that's already in place. All they have to do is actually use the poles, but they're not, which is leading to the problems. So I don't think a parking arm is needed. I think that all the access concerns far outweigh this idea that the arm fits within the code. We don't think it's going to work in reality. We think it's going to cause more problems. We think it's going to get broken time and time again. We think it's going to have a detrimental impact on the majority for a handful. We think it'll tarnish the charm and the beauty of Main Street. We think it'll add unnecessary congestion on Main Street sidewalks with delivery drivers. And we have serious concern about property and life based on the possibility of a fire that we've already seen happen in the very back of that alley. So we think it's a terrible idea. And we think that everyone presenting today knew that commercial businesses used this alley when they purchased their property, and now they want that to change. And so we urge you to vote no, even though it may fit within the guidelines of the code for the design. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you for your testimony. All right. John, let's just see other members of the public who want to speak. Let's go through that. Anyone else who wants to speak from the public here? I can't really tell. Lisa King asked to unmute, it says. Just wave your hand if you want to talk. All right. Seeing no motion in the chamber, as we used to say, I will close public testimony, and now I'd like to actually go per our procedure to go to among the commissioners our discussion. And John, you raised your hand, so so among commissioners, what do you find persuasive in the testimony that we've heard? Will.
Thank you, Tim. Having served for 30 years on the Planning Commission before serving on this commission, I participated in the review of a number of the restaurants that Mr. Bolter was referring to. And I think that having done that, it would be incumbent upon him, although his remarks and his submissions were very well thought out and clearly presented, to review all of those applications. And it would be much more compelling to make his case if he showed, as the records should show, how much discussion was given to this parking facility and the way that it would assist in keeping the streets clear and sort of putting the back office kind of, back of store operations out of general public view. But with all of that, as a recommendation to bolster any follow-up actions that he would like to take, we simply do not have any authority, as frustrating and annoying as it is to him, and I understand his feelings. Might have them myself if I were in his shoes, but we simply do not have any authority to take up any of the issues that he raised.
Yeah.
Our guidelines do not give us any authority, and I do not think we should belabor this point by extensive discussion. We have to stick to our guidelines and our responsibilities.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Kevin, I think you raised your hand.
Yeah, I was going to reiterate what, I'm just agreeing with Will that unfortunately, even with my personal opinions, I don't think we have anything to use right now to deny this application. And the reasons I think it should be denied are for planning and zoning to enforce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would join in as well in concert with my fellow commissioners. Whether or not we agree with what he's saying and his arguments, we don't have the legal authority, I guess, as Will said, to do anything but follow our guidelines. And if we make a decision that doesn't follow our guidelines, then we potentially put somebody in potential legal trouble. And so, we have to adhere to our guidelines and the Secretary of the Interior standards. Those are the tenets that we follow, and to stray from those could potentially make a mess.
Huh. Yeah. All right. John, so thanks for those deliberations, commissioners. John, did you have anything to add? You had raised your hand at one point.
It's really
I shut you down.
Yeah. Well, it's really inconsequential. I
But
wasn't
then never
concerned
mind.
with let me finish.
Okay.
So it wasn't access, it was impact. The impacts that the building was suffering. And just for background, I have to say, these masonry repairs were painful. They were painful for me as a preservationist. And they're numerous. And I think about every 2 or 3 weeks, I'd get a call. Can you please come and take a look?
Yeah.
We have a new impact. We need a new repair. And so that was
Understood.
really what my involvement was, not about access.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that, because impact on the building is important to us. All right. Commissioners, we have had our deliberations. I will then.
Tim, can I ask a question though?
Of course, Kevin.
Were there other examples of similar parking restriction mechanisms in the historic area that were comparable?
I can name 2 or 3. On Cathedral Street, there are 2. On Newman Street.
Green Street's the most recent.
Green Street. Yes, right. We have seen this. That's a good question, Kevin. There's a precedent. Interestingly, this one, from if you want my deliberation point of view, this is well recessed from the street and has no impact on the streetscape, which is important. If they had asked to put this right on the street, on Conduit Street, I would have a different opinion, but it's well recessed. So I don't think it has an adverse impact on Conduit Street where the buildings. So, but to answer your question, Kevin, yes, with our multiple examples.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, then I think then we are ready for a motion, please.
I move that we give conditional approval to the project at 171 Cathedral Street as it is consistent with the guidelines C6 and C10 Secretary of the Interior standards 1, 2, 9, and 10 with the condition that the applicant works with staff in the fire marshal's office to determine the best location for the Knox box.
I second the motion.
Okay. Just want to make sure that the applicant agrees to that condition. Okay.
Unmute. Yes, the applicant agrees. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission.
Okay. All right. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? Okay. Thanks, everyone. And thanks for your input. Okay. And next on the agenda is we have a pre-application for 3 Wagner Street. I see Dan Douglas is the architect. So this is the first time we've seen this one. For Kimberly, jumping back, we should accept into the record the application for 171 Conduit Street, the staff report for 171 Conduit Street, and I think there were 2 letters, I'll call it Dry 85 letter and Cafe Normandy letter, 2 opposition letters that should be exhibited with the numbers that you know how to do.
And
looks
the
like
third from Red Wine.
Is the red wine, right?
Yes.
RWB. There's 3 letters. So Kimberly, there are so that we have 5 exhibits.
I have a question. Is Jacqueline part of your team? Milo and Dan?
Oh, okay.
No,
No?
no.
No.
Okay. She might just be listening. All right. So welcome. Is it Dan? Are you going to be presenting?
Yeah.
Good. Before we start, can I make a clarifying point? I think it's important.
Of course.
This is Dan's pre-application, but Dan is also submitted a formal application and is on the agenda for October.
That's okay.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Thank you, John.
I think that in the spirit of what pre-applications are all about, that's kind of the concept that we want to give some feedback, and an application can be revised before its final submission. So I think in the spirit of pre-applications, that's fine. And so in that spirit, Dan, if you don't, this is a pre-application before the commission, and nothing should be taken as a approval or disapproval of the things that are being presented. And the final application will be what we were looking. Do you understand?
Understood.
Thanks.
All right, I'll share my screen.
Cool.
Let's hope. Can you see this?
Yes. Everybody
Great.
else? Cool.
I'm presenting this proposal on behalf of the owners of number 3 Wagner Street, which is this half of this duplex. Number 3 and number 4 comprise this duplex on fronting on Wagner Street. Wagner runs off of King George Street. St. John's College would be up here. This is the Naval Academy wall, and that's the corner of the parade field, which you get a nice view of from the upper floors of this duplex. The aerial photo shows the area that we're proposing to infill with a small 120 square foot second story addition, and it's this corner, inside corner of the building. And there are 2 other minor additional aspects to this, which I'll use other images to demonstrate. This is the site plan. This is the building number 3 and number 4. The lots here in this part of Annapolis are small. This lot is already fairly crowded. The hatched portion is the 120 square feet that's currently a deck that will become a screen porch with an addition above the screen porch.
So Hanover Street is up in the upper left here.
Hanover Street would be here.
So
So
Wagner Street is in the upper left. Thank you.
Wagner is the upper left. You turn the corner onto Hanover down
Cool.
here.
So you're looking, let's do north then. Okay, thanks.
Right. These two images tell most of the story here. The proposal will involve removing a small section of this roof, this section of this roof, and that section of this roof. The deck will remain as is, except the railings will go away, and the deck will become a screen porch. An addition will be placed over the deck. This is a bathroom and a walk-in closet. That's the extent of the second floor addition and work. At the third floor, there will be a dormer with a door for light, providing light and air to the third floor. And there will be an extension of the existing shed dormer so that it matches the neighbor's extension of their old shed dormer, and there will be a small separation between the two. That really is the extent of the project. Here are some elevations that give a sense of scale and proportion. So these are existing, and we're adding screen porch, the second floor bathroom and closet, dormer for air and light with a glass door in it, and the extension from this point of the existing shed dormer to leave a small gap between number 3 and number 4 Wagner Street. As we walk down Wagner Street from King George Street, at this point where we start to have any chance of seeing around toward the back of the building, we can't see any of the addition from this point on Wagner Street. As we move about 30 feet down Wagner Street, in summer, we'll probably see a glimpse of this, understand that there's something there, but it won't really be visible. And in winter, through the screening of this vegetation, you'll see this much of the proposed addition. This is a panoramic, very distorted view of the entire back area, including the neighbor. So the addition will be over this and extend out onto this kitchen addition from some time ago. At the shed dormer on the third floor, we're talking about extending that into this space. That was done by the neighbors some time ago to make a little porch, which is a nice feature. So this extension is going to be inches from that and complete this larger shed dormer across both properties. A couple other shots. This is a very nice spiral staircase to their deck. This is the fence between the two properties, the neighboring property, wooden fence, tall wooden fence. And this is the small backyard garden that will be some of the paving, 120 square feet of the paving will be replaced with 120 square feet of rain garden in consideration of the addition of impervious surface. And that is the scope of the project.
Fine. Thank you. Commissioners, thoughts? In terms of its, I always have the first question. Sorry to just jump in. For John, can you tell us about the, or Dan, the contributing nature of this building and its significance? Is it contributing?
It certainly contributes to the streetscape of Wagner Street. Yes.
I guess from its, when was it built, and these additions. So what we're really looking for is, it looks like this building has transformed over time. So these additions are going to be, it's going to be important for you to document in your application when the pieces that you're moving or demolishing and impacting, and when, things that you're impacting when they were built.
Okay.
So
I'll do my research.
Homework for you.
Document that.
Yeah, I see. Leslie's got her hand up.
Yeah. So Dan, the dormer that you're placing there, was there a dormer in the roof before there?
No.
This dormer is new. There was not a dormer there before, as far as I know.
And you're putting a door, is that going to be a deck?
No,
No.
there will be no railings, no furnishings, no plants placed out there. It's simply a door to a rooftop. Seen from above, there'll be nothing placed on that roof deck.
I guess I'd really like to see more about the revisions to the building and the history of the building.
Okay, I'll take care of that. Thank you.
Bill?
Yeah, Dan, I have
Yes.
a couple questions for you, and I'm going to go back to the door in the dormer. The addition you're putting on has a very flat roof. That door is going on to it. Again, appears to be as much a deck without railings. To me, a door there is a incentive for someone to perhaps go out on that roof. Why not just use a multi-paned window to get your light in rather than have a door there? The door doesn't seem to have a purpose. That's question one.
Yeah, we expected that comment, and that door can be a window if need be. It's a door at this point primarily for the nicety of a lot of light and a lot of air, but it can be a window.
You can get a lot of windows that give you the air and light as well.
Yeah.
The other question is your extension of your shed dormer. Is you're taking it tight to the adjacent building, and with us trying to protect the buildings, make sure they're maintained, it looks like may create a situation where you can not only maintain your wall, but you're preventing your neighbor from maintaining theirs.
Okay.
The only solution I would say, and I probably shouldn't suggest solutions, would either be to pull it away so you have room to maintain it, or come up with an agreement with your neighbor you can attach the two buildings.
That would be ideal.
But
It was the traditional method.
Yes, which would take care of that. Other than those two things, this creates a very unique rear of the building. But looking at some historic photos I could probably hunt up, there seems to be random additions to the rear of a lot of the buildings in Annapolis are rather unique.
Yeah.
Random addition, I like that term.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah, I think this is in the spirit of random additions.
But it's historically semi-accurate. Okay, that's really it, Dan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Bobby.
Going back to the dormer again, I'm sorry, I'm the third person to bring it up. Our guideline D21 says that new dormers on existing roofs are discouraged. Has he thought about anything like a skylight to get more light into that area?
Yes. I thought about that today. I'm going to recommend that.
Okay.
I think that makes sense.
And when you put together the application, as others are, I'm really struggling to see, different ages of different parts of the building, so that if the building is contributing, but a lot of these additions are really new, it would be helpful to know that. And also we talk about how new additions need to look like new additions. If you could show us clearly how that's gonna be. I know this is just one model drawing that you gave us here, but I'm kind of struggling to see how all the pieces will fit together and
Right.
how to be able to differentiate the new parts.
Okay.
So are you saying that we don't really right now? I think the building siding is stucco, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Will the new addition be shiplap or siding to differentiate it? Like there's a good picture there. It tells you that's new. So differentiating is important. All to know.
Okay.
So all those details are not evident right now, but I'm sure you've thought them through. You know what you're going to do, or you're going to decide that.
Yeah.
And in your presentation, we'll need to see it.
Yeah. And it also looks like on the third floor above the sleeping porch part, you take away some windows. If they turn out to be historic windows, I know you're putting in windows, but we'll want to know what's happening to those old windows, and are you going to reuse them and things like that. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good point. I think in this view, we're seeing right here, these don't look like, but actually just document for us what is being removed. And it doesn't look like the roof material is historic either, right?
Okay.
Tim?
Yes.
Overall, I have no problem with the proposal, but I like both the suggestions that Bobby and Bill made, especially Bobby's, and I'm glad that Mr. Douglas said that he would implement that. And I think Bill's is just a practical one. I wondered the same thing myself. If you build it out that way, aren't you creating problems for both property owners?
Right.
But other than that, I really don't have anything else to say at the moment.
All right. But I think in summary then,
Tim, I was just gonna.
Yeah, Ken.
I was gonna say I appreciated the presentation. It really, the detail of the drawings was helpful to understand the massing and the impact to the streetscape. So I just appreciated the attention to detail in the presentation.
Yep.
Thank you.
Makes it easy when you have those good.
Sorry, go ahead.
Makes it easy to review.
Exactly.
Good presentation.
Yeah, and the only one view I might be interested in is if you're standing, well, actually a site plan will be important, I think, too. Yeah, I think, Dan, you mentioned some changes to the garden and paving back there. So that should be part of the final presentation. And then it'd be great if you could do a view back from the garden to the house from a neighbor's point of view, but not a big deal. But I think the site plan is actually kind of an important thing, so we understand any changes in the garden.
And you have in mind a more rendered site plan with vegetation, that sort of thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, actually, if we were looking at this, if you were just tell us what paving and landscape changes are occurring in the backyard.
Okay.
That would be a typical component of an application.
All right.
Because we'll just ask for it if you don't provide it. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think you refer to the fact that you're going to change the paving in the backyard.
Yes.
And I don't. I'm just actually curious if you are in the backyard looking back at the building, but I don't think this has any kind of massing adverse impact on the surrounding buildings. So that's, I mean, the biggest thing here is this is not a large. We're looking at our guidelines from a massing and scale point of view. This doesn't have an adverse impact on the buildings around it, and again, I'm summarizing. It doesn't seem to be so large that it's going to have an adverse impact on anything around it. The details of the windows will be important. You can see all the details on the railing will be important to include in your final presentation. The windows on the second floor, and I think you've agreed that the dormer, which looks like it's going to be a door to a deck, will probably turn out to be a skylight, which we would support. So with those additional details, I think if I speak for my fellow commissioners, that appears to be a feasible application, and we look forward to a final.
Very good. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right,
Thanks, Dan.
All right. Next on the agenda is administrative business. We have the administrative approvals from January to March, and then April to June. They're submitted to us for review. We don't need to vote or accept on them. They're just admitted for the record. And again, I always like to say it's a remarkable 80% of what John's office does is he can handle, and we only get to see 20%. So I always review them just for information. But John, you're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And thanks for your support, commissioners and chair. Appreciate it. Including your staff report editing comments. Thank you so much.
I love reading the staff reports. Just love the maps, the Sanborn maps. Amazing.
How about that picture of Conduit Street?
With the dog in the street, the dog in the street. I've seen that picture before. It's the most amazing picture. And that was Annapolis's image in the early 19th century. Yep, dogs sleep in the middle of the street. Pretty sleepy town. Okay, any other administrative business comments, thoughts? I had one thing that I would like you to be aware of that I am in discussions with. There is a process going on to change the height district for the hotel at the end of Dock Street.
Proposed hotel.
The proposed hotel. So that's been on it's not a surprise to any of you, I don't think. That's been in the discussion for many years. It is starting to move through the process. I have asked, I've only become aware of it through Ellie made me aware of it. So I don't, and I've asked questions back, and John and I will have, we all can have conversation with John. What is the next step here? How do you revise its code? It's in the code and it's in the guidelines, both. So there's an appeal to do that. Plus, it has other impacts. The request is coming to change the floor area ratio, which we'll certainly know from the Planning Commission. But right now it's 2-to-1. They're going to request 4-to-1, which allows them to create a larger building. To be full disclosure, they're asking for a restaurant and a bar. So which is fine. We all want to activate the space. But I just want to let you know that I've been informed of that process or that request, and I actually don't know the next step. I just don't know. I think what would normally happen with any code change, there would be a proposal to City Council, it would refer to us, and I think that's right. Will, you might inform me.
That would be the case for the Planning Commission, and I'm not exactly sure whether it's the same for us, but I would hope and expect so.
Yeah. Well, the FAR would go to the Planning Commission. The Height District would come to us for comment. And then we'll have an open conversation about it. But so the process has started, basically, is what I'm saying. I think also, this should be a part of the whole city dock discussion. And I continue, anytime I have conversations about this, it's like, this is not one little project out by itself. It is part of the whole city dock process. And when Ellie, when she sent it to me, said the same thing. So this is very interesting. Have you been communicating, or are you talking with all of the conversations? So let's make this a part of the same discussion. We saw in July the Burtis House discussion. So we have now 3 pieces that should be part of one master plan, and I keep on asking for that. So if you, as commissioners, would agree with me, I will keep saying these are 3 parts of the same master plan. So please present the master plan. I'm hoping.
I definitely support you in one unified plan for that area. As we all know, that is not a historically large bulk area. They're all low-lying buildings.
Yeah.
Also, our waterfront hotel across the harbor from us, across the Eagle Alley, that was the whole reason those codes went in, because that thing snuck through and ended up overpowering everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. We also had issues with just the sight lines and the views today.
Yeah. Well,
Tim, I completely support your request and continued attempts to be involved at this stage. But I do think I understand why there hasn't been a master plan. And I don't think a master plan could have been done at this point, as much as we all would like to have it. The question of ownership of the Burtis House being the clearest example. Until the city knew it could control it, it was hard to do a whole master plan and then have to rework all the things that are related to how the Burtis House could be utilized.
There is an Annapolis City Dock master plan that was adopted in 2019.
By the way, hi, Jackie.
Hi. So
let the record reflect that Jackie has joined.
Sorry.
The meeting.
I just want to say there is an Annapolis City Dock master plan that was done in 2019 and adopted by the council, and it's actually online, and it does have recommendations for moving forward with height changes, making it has some very specific recommendations for different properties that surround the property that became that is the subject of the current project. But additionally, but that's not really where I was going when I raised my hand before, is that, Tim, I think that if you want legislation, referral of amendments to Title 21 are automatically sent to the Planning Commission. But I think that if you all want to review some aspect of this legislation, I think you probably need to go on the council can refer legislation to additional committees, but I don't know that referring this to the APC to review whatever aspects of it is automatic, is all I'm saying. And I'm going to suggest that you request that, just to go on the record for that.
Thanks. I'll look at it in detail. Just so, again, so you know, it's pretty detailed, and John Arison is drafting. John Arison is working on the part of the applicant or the property owner.
Well, I've read the legislation.
You read it? So
yes, it was sent to me, and
good.
it has some omissions, and that I've already pointed out to Alderman
John.
Tierney.
Well, I'm glad that you have it. So it's 21. So he's actually referring to specific.
I've just happened to be given a copy to review, but the problem with the change to the FAR is that if you have a building has an which I think that if a building has an FAR of greater than 2.0, it's automatically a planned development, and planned developments are not allowed in the C2 district. So there would need to be additional amendments.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts.
I mean, there's some holes in how it's been drafted. So, but that that can all be ironed out as it moves forward, and it needs a sponsor.
Yeah, there you
the
go.
Dog whoever's dog it was just sponsored it. Well, what I'll state my personal opinion is this is a big project, and it isn't just about the height. It is about the FAR. It's about the use of a rooftop bar. So it's not just a Historic Preservation Commission issue. So I'm happy to participate with all of the commissions as this. I think we all want to activate the space. There's no question about that.
Absolutely. I would recommend that you all go back and review the Annapolis City Dock master plan that was adopted, because it impacts many of the properties that you deal with. And I think everybody's forgotten about it.
Well, theoretically, that is what we are seeing when we see the joint presentations about the sea level rise and all those things. So theoretically, we are already seeing the next steps of those. The thing that you're seeing in those joint presentations deals only with a portion of the property that was within the total scope of the study. They focused in on part of it. Right. So I keep on arguing that, not arguing. Let's look at the bigger picture. So you're right.
Yes.
So I will. Will said he supported me. Like, keep on looking at all of the moving parts.
And surely Will would remember having been on the committee the years ago where we looked at changing heights in the historic district. Don't you remember that, Will?
I remember it, and I support it.
But we never got any place with that for a variety of reasons. I mean, I think that as we move forward in time, the issue of adding height to accommodate sea level rise is going to have to be dealt with for not just this property owned by this one property owner, but by many properties. So, looking at it in a more comprehensive way, how are you going to do that for other properties that are impacted by sea level rise? And if you go back and look at, the sea level rise study from 2011 still on the city website. It's actually on the mayor's page, and it shows how much all the properties that have the potential to be impacted by sea level rise, and it's far more than just a few properties on Dock Street.
Yeah.
So
we have a comprehensive study that the study that was done 3 or 4 years ago, which I think it's keeping your head above water.
Well, that was the 2011. That was the one Lisa Craig did in 2011.
And
Sea level
all
rise.
of those, all of them talk about the same thing. We don't, when
Mm-hmm.
we look at changing code, and again, I encourage all of the commissioners to, you don't have to go into the wonky code, but I think we do need to remember that John in his presentation talked about it's a 7-foot rise, but the new platform that the sea level rise is going to require us to go to 4 to 5 feet above that. So it's really not. It's a height. We're raising the height from the new baseline, and we saw that. We had a brief discussion in the Burtis House.
Oh,
back in
yes.
July.
Right.
So we all just need to be comfortable with those discussions, I think.
Tim, one thing I'd like to make clear is there's a difference between the height of the building and the elevation of the building. If we determine the ground plane from there is the height of the building, that ground plane could be determined to be, because of sea level rise, 7 foot higher than what it is, without changing the height of the buildings. The buildings are still two
correct.
buildings.
Yes,
and the terminology has to be worked out.
A property owner is allowed to build from the new legislated level. So it will be more than 7 feet higher than it is now.
If they're talking about a FAR change where you're now going from, I think, Jackie, you said 2.
They're requesting 4. They're requesting 4 to 1.
They're requesting, but they're going at 2, I thought. 2 is original, and then they're going to
2
4.
is what they have now.
You're now talking about, instead of a 2-story building from the new ground plane, a 4-story building.
Completely, yes.
So it is a doubling of building height as opposed to just raising the building with the ground plane.
And our current height district, interestingly, the code, I'd love to evaluate all of these things. It assumes a gable roof, which is a cornice at the street level, and then a gable behind it. That's the way it's written. Well, that doesn't really fit with the way buildings are built now. So mass is important, not just height. So mass is important. So I'm preaching to the choir here, I think. So I think, John, you had your hand up.
Well, it is going to be interesting to see what legislation occurs to change the base height of a building to allow it to be above floodplain. And right now, the additional space that is required to raise a building above floodplain is not given to additional height. Just saying, the reviews right now do not, let's say you have to raise the base of a building, or the base of the building, new building has to be at 4 feet to be above floodplain. Well, and the height restriction is, let's say, arbitrarily 32 feet. You wouldn't get an actual 36-foot building. Anyone can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I can correct you.
No, John, I believe
that actually the law is now, if the legislation is that you have raised, you get the new height. You don't squeeze a building height. You get the new height.
No, that's within the office. I've asked.
But Tim, I think what John may be referring to is there's a section in the historic district regulations about how you measure building height, and it doesn't currently, and you have to measure it from the current grade. You don't get to add that. That's how it's written now. But I do believe that there are other historic cities, such as perhaps Charleston and maybe Savannah, who have dealt with this floodplain issue in terms of adjusting their height limits within their historic districts to allow for it, but they've done it in a more comprehensive way allow what you're saying. And that's a different kind of code amendment than just
it is.
And that's probably the research. I mean, that if you wanted to present an alternative, that's really something that you perhaps, someone needs to do a little bit of homework on. It's just a suggestion.
It sounds like something
I see it coming.
Jackie, it sounds like you can do that. It's your.
Well, I could do that, but it's, yeah, I mean, I'll be happy I will be happy, Tim, to look. To do
The little bit of research I have done on this, and this was going back 2 years ago, is there was a lawsuit. I can't remember where it was, but that there was a taking concept of taking your property rights when the city raises the plane to 4 above and
right.
and the height, and so it was considered a taking, and they ruled that no, if the legislation changes your base level, you are entitled to above. So I can't remember what city it was.
Well, maybe you can remember that.
Okay.
Then we could research that. That would be really helpful. If was this a topic that was discussed when you went to the conference?
No, actually, this specific taking concept wasn't. But 2 years ago, I remember I had a fairly long discussion with Karen Brown, actually, about the Burtis. It was about the Burtis house.
Right.
So these are all things that are going to be moving through these parts. Again, back to the master plan for the whole area, as opposed to one developer coming in.
Right. I, over the weekend, looked at that Annapolis, the city dock master plan, and it has some very specific, it identifies like development sites, and it has very specific recommendations for, what needs to be done to move forward for the, for sea level rise, required height changes. And I believe it, and I think there's also there was a cultural landscape report.
It's really, really detailed.
Right,
it's
and
wonderful.
That was one of the recommendations, I think, of the city dock master plan. But somebody, I don't know that the proposed legislation really reflects like a serious look at what's in those variety of plans. So that's something to think about.
We might be the only commission looking at it. It was, and I will continue to raise it to the planning and zoning. I think it's actually Jackie Gild's department actually maintains that part of the website.
The sea level, she has the sea level rise report is on her webpage. It's called the Sustainability and Resiliency page. And that's where I found
keeping history above water.
Something like, so that's on her page. I'm not sure where I found a copy of the cultural landscape.
It's on
study.
There too. Yeah.
It might have also been on that page, but I don't think the Annapolis, I don't remember where I found the master plan. I think I downloaded all of these documents anyway.
Agreed. I guess, John, back to both of you, this is all about making the city manager, Mike Malinoff, aware that we want, again, I'm speaking for you all, we want this to be remembered. A lot of time and effort was spent, and all of Will was part of we are sometimes forgetting all of these things when we make these new proposals. Yeah, Will?
We have to remember as we talk about this, we're struggling to recall different personal conversations, meetings we've attended, conversations or reviews of documents. The administration is driving this process, as they should. But if we want to have input that's meaningful, Tim, I would suggest you draft a letter for our review that you remind the mayor of our concern and our rightful involvement in reviewing the progress, not at the end when there's some new plan, and making that request with our full support. The other thing I would observe, Jackie's given us a lot of good information. As part of the team that created the plan that we're talking about, it's like a comprehensive plan legally, in my understanding. It is not, even though it may have specific sections, it's not to be looked at as this is what we will do. It evolves as we find specific issues like who owns the Burtis house and can it be moved or not moved and things like that. So it is a moving target and we need to be involved at every stage.
Right,
You're
so,
right.
so you might send that to the mayor and to all the older people who, so
Yeah.
that they all have that
Yes.
letter. And that you reference, that there is an adopted city
Okay.
plan for the
Right.
dock too.
Yeah.
I mean, and remind them. I think everybody's forgotten.
Yes, I agree with Jackie. And
I agree.
they can't just take it and throw it away. They
The
can change
content,
it.
completely, I agree. The content in there is so valuable. It was so well done.
Right.
So I'll take that
Right.
on board.
Under
Will,
Maryland law, zoning changes have to be determined to be in compliance with adopted plans, including
Yes.
sector studies, not just comprehensive plans. So at some point,
Yes.
whatever they're proposing has to comply with the recommendations that are in that study. And I think that's maybe been, hasn't been looked at thoroughly, I will say, with this proposed legislation, which really just focuses on one property.
That's what always happens. That's what always happened with the comprehensive plans and the planning commission. Somebody has a project, and whether you like it or not, it could be a great project. And if it
Right.
doesn't conform to that existing plan, then it can't really happen, because it has to fall within those guidelines, parameters. that
Right.
established.
So, Tim, I would just say, I think we all agree, whether from a historic preservation point of view or from a
It's beyond
planning
that.
point of view,
right.
that we need to address accommodating height based on, sea level rise in the historic district. And we have to have
Yeah.
a game plan, but we have to have a game plan that addresses the potential for all the properties that could be potentially impacted.
Right.
That's kind of where I was coming from in my comments.
So I'll take this on board. I'm hearing us say
We need that by
we
8
as a
o'clock tomorrow
commission
morning,
need-
right, Will?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I'll draft this tonight. So I think I'm happy to do this based on what the momentum behind this. We need to boil down from our commission something that the alderman will read. It needs to be one page.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And we don't want to present a new plan, but I say, here are the 3 plans that were done in the last few years, and here are the salient points. And it is important right now because there's a proposal coming your way. So I think that I need to, I'm happy to spend.
But I
some
think
time.
if you focus just on the Annapolis City Dock Master Plan,
That's all,
I can't
yeah.
remember if that, that's the one that everything came from.
And the height, the change in the height determination and how it's computed, because that's the one
Right.
I'm hearing all of us.
Correct.
I tend to be more liberal on this point than I think the rest of the commission, but I agree with you that when we set that, then a lot of our concerns will be addressed just by doing that.
Sure.
Right. So maybe you don't need to change the height districts. Maybe that you need to do more of what William was talking about. He's gone now, but about how there's some provision put in that about where you measure height from.
Yeah.
Maybe it's
Yes.
that kind of a change.
Yeah.
And that's certainly something that could be, so that the
Yeah.
height districts really stay with the way they are. It's just that you get to measure it from a different point.
Well, you choose a grade plane.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
that's that.
Suddenly
that's-
your grade plane isn't where the current ground level is, because you're still
Right.
dealing with sea level height. Your grade plane is now, instead of at 4 feet of sea level, it's now at 12 foot of sea level.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And you
And
can
you
see
can
it
go
in
2
the
stories above that.
Yeah, and the city dock planning, the city dock presentations we've seen, they use a rubric of 0 to 5 or 6. So there's a specific method to calculate this and
If you
define
get
it.
that nailed down, then we start concentrating as preservationists on exactly what that building's going to look like.
Exactly.
If you don't get that nailed down, then you get this, one-offs where somebody says, well, I want a 5-story building.
Yeah.
And then they start playing with all of these moving parts.
Exactly.
Defined.
Yeah, we can't even. So the other there's two things there. We have to worry about accessory structures on top of buildings. When in our code right now, we talk about accessory on top of buildings. We have specific heights. That's another thing when we get into the weeds on this. But
Right. Well, haven't you all talked in the past about making some adjustments to those to accommodate for the other extraneous stuff on rooftops that's not?
We do it on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
For screening. The other thing I want us to remember is that we will be asked about this one particular parcel. Actually, it's two parcels. I don't think it's a good idea to have spot zoning for changing the height on two parcels for one property. So I will be, if you all agree, if we're going to make this change, let's talk about a change for properties adjacent to this. Spot zoning or this type of zoning opens up lots of legal issues.
Well, that was
the
kind
city
of where
will
I
get
was
sued.
going.
I mean, sorry.
You
Yeah,
talk-
I think there are
city-
properties going much further up Dock Street if you go back
way
and
up.
look at those sea level rise maps,
yeah, of
and
course.
properties
Yeah.
on the other side that are going to be,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, if you look at the map, the zoning map all the way up Dock Street, if you want to pursue this to the changing the height, you would change the whole Dock Street, like all the way to Middleton's, to a new height district to be rational, consistent, because it changes at what used to be Maria's. It's now the
Rooster?
Yes, Iron Rooster.
Iron
That
Rooster.
building is at Height District 3. Middleton's is Height District 2 all the way out. So, if we want to avoid spot zoning, which is apparently it's not illegal, but it opens the city to owners saying, you gave that guy 3, and I didn't get 2. I'm still 2. I want 3.
Well, I will tell you, Tim, that I've been involved with projects that were accused of spot zoning with the city, and the city simply said, no, they do not do spot zoning.
I have heard that.
And I have seen more than one project that magically gets through as a spot zoning issue.
Okay. All right.
So it seems to depend on which side of the river you're on, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I guess my point was nationwide or whatever. It opens the city to legal action if you do spot zoning.
Yeah.
So we need to think if we're going to, and I'll bring that up in general. Let's not just talk about these 2 plots. How about the 2 plots next to them, the parcels next to them? So these are all kind of bubbling around. I thought I'd bring it up. I think you're hearing my point of view, and I
Well,
will
Tim,
never.
I'd like to see a draft of that letter, and I
Of
fully
course.
support you.
Okay, yeah, I will never speak as for the commission without giving you a draft, and I will try and keep it brief. But as we started talking here, there's lots of moving parts, and I just keep it brief. I'll try and keep it brief. And I think Jackie has at least seen it, and John has not seen this draft. You should have, John Tower. So I don't know how the process is working within City Hall, but there is draft legislation. It's very detailed, drafted by a former planning and zoning who's John Harrison knows exactly what to write. So it's gotten to that level of formality, so I feel comfortable commenting on it. I guess that's what I'm saying.
I think it's great.
Okay. All right. I'll do that.
Can
And
I
I'll
just
send it
say,
out.
it's a
Yeah.
small comment. This is the first letter. You could write more than one letter.
Oh, yeah.
So
Good point.
you don't have to get everything in.
Yep.
I
Good point,
overthink
John.
things. I totally overthink things, so I agree with you. All right, I'll adjust yeah. I'll write the long letter and then I'll edit it down and send it to you. And I can do that, I think, next week. I think we have, John, we have an administrative meeting in a week and a half.
We do. It's not a week, but 2 weeks, 2.5.
All right.
Really, sorry.
2 from Thursday.
Right.
Yes.
Any, there's things on the agenda, so we will meet.
So there's, I'll talk about what's on the agenda. Gary Schwarzler is proposing to come to that administrative meeting. And for that, he would like to present new decks in the front yard of his Compromise Street project from years ago with John Pilley. That is actually, I think, still really excellent.
I think you
project.
sent us. Did you send that to all of us? Did all the commissioners see the kind of the draft for that?
I'm not sure. That's, by the way, that's Jackie calling me. She lost her her connection.
Oh, that's okay. So Will, I know you remember this project, and
Yes, it's a fine project, but there were, we stretched a lot of things to allow it to happen. And if the planning office won't sign off on it, that what they're proposing is allowable, then we're wasting Gary's time and ours to review it at this time.
So Jackie is reviewing it prior to the upcoming administrative meeting, because it may not be something that's allowed.
I don't think it is, but I didn't go back and look at the record or anything.
There are issues of communal space or community, sorry, not communal, community space, condominium space, shared space in the front yard. And this would create private space or private use of that space. So
that's the issue.
That's not our, luckily, again, that's not our sandbox.
Right.
Tim,
So
good meeting, but I've got to run.
We're good. I just would, so we'll see you in a few weeks then. Thank you. I appreciate all of your input and all of your effort. Thank you, everyone.
thank you to everyone.
Yeah, very good meeting.
Thank
Great.
you.
Have a good evening.
Bye. We have to move to adjourn.
Oh, yes. I move to adjourn. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.